Well, the Penguins continue to have a big week of games coming up. Next up, New Jersey. I'll tell you, when Matt Murray's on his game, not many better clutch big game goalies. However, he's had a history of being injured, 10 since 2015. So Jason Mackey, I wonder, given that, Casey DeSmith has been fine. I don't have a problem with any of that. But do you think there's a need maybe in case there's a long-term injury to Murray that they have someone else besides Casey DeSmith?
Maybe there's a need, Pomp, but I just don't see that as being realistic. I mean, at some point, Matt Murray has to stay healthy, and they have to sort of hitch their wagon to this. I can understand the logic of not wanting to trade Tristan Jarry for that reason, but I'm not in favor of bringing in a 1A, somebody to complement Matt Murray. I think you risk insulting the guy who you've established as your franchise netminder and chosen over Marc-Andre Fleury. You've signed Casey DeSmith to a 3-year contract, theoretically thinking that he is capable of carrying the load if something happens to Matt Murray. And I mean, we can talk about wrapping the poor kid in bubble wrap and not letting him ever see contact or the light of day or whatever. I mean, sooner or later, he just has to stay healthy. And that's where I'm at with it. They need to find a way to keep him healthy for the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think there's any need to make a trade right now. Tristan Jarry as your number 3 goaltender in the organization is not bad. I know he doesn't have a ton of NHL experience, but he has the pedigree, and I don't think you're going to find anyone a whole lot better than Tristan Jarry who's available out there, not for a small price anyway. So I think they're fine. Long term, Murray's health's an issue. We all know it is. I think Casey DeSmith has proven himself to be a good backup. Do I think he's much more than that? Probably not. So in the future, I think it might be a concern at some point, sure, but I don't think it's something Jim Rutherford needs to worry about right now.
Well, it depends. If they can find somebody that's a rental guy or somebody that they need for the short term, right, that they could get in a trade, and obviously I don't know what the contracts of all the other 7,000 goaltenders in the league, but I'm just saying if there's a guy like that, they should think about it. And the reason why is because Matt Murray, you know, it'd be nice if he does stay healthy, but he doesn't. And I think the thing about it is I just can't see them beating somebody like Tampa or the Capitals even, or, the San Jose or some of the teams that they would have to play to win the Stanley Cup with Casey DeSmith if he had to play, if he was their starting goaltender for a long period. So to me, I would just say at least for this year, if you could find an insurance policy, it's not a bad thing.
All right, let's talk about Chris Letang. I can't remember, you guys have heard it a lot, but we do this nightly sports call every night. Over the years, there have been so many calls to trade Chris Letang. I think he's one of the most underappreciated guys in Pittsburgh.
Lately?
Yeah, last year with coming off neck surgery, he kind of rushed himself back. He wasn't the same. We heard those same calls. But to fully appreciate him is to watch him every day. So the question now, Josh Yohe, is he a Norris winner this year? He's been a finalist before, but should he win it?
Yeah, he's been a finalist one time. I strongly believe he should be a finalist this year. His biggest competition was just in town, I think. Mark Giordano of the Calgary Flames is having an incredible season at age 35. Kind of come out of nowhere a little bit. He's probably the favorite. It doesn't hurt him that he plays in Canada. Probably going to get a lot of those votes. But Chris Letang is incredibly underappreciated in my opinion. He's got 15 goals. He's at almost a point per game. He's been incredible offensively, as he often is. To me, it's his defensive work. Yeah, he takes chances sometimes. He gets burned and gives up a 2-on-1 every now and then because he's aggressive, but the coaches want him to play that way. And if you watch him in his zone, he is so much better than he's given credit for. He's one of the best one-on-one defenders in the league. He's so strong, such of a great skater. He's absolutely a finalist, and he has a chance to win it, Bob.
Yeah, I really can't come up with a reason why he shouldn't be a finalist. I think the Giordano vote, and we saw it at the midseason PHWA awards or whatever, Letang didn't get a ton of love, and I think that was wrong. I know I voted for him, Josh. I'm sure you were probably the same way.
I did.
Watching him day in and day out, I mean, we're almost spoiled by it, and I don't understand why there's not more buzz. I mean, maybe because people don't see enough of him. I'm not sure, but, getting out of his own zone, the stuff Josh is talking about, how many minutes he eats, all the situations he plays in, and frankly, the offensive end of it, I realize that, that's only a small part, but look at what he did Sunday against the Rangers. Those are the play to create the first goal, and then the shot and what he did on the second, just tremendous stuff. He has to be there, in my opinion.
Yeah, he absolutely. But I think the one thing that, Bob, you talked about how, for years people have been trying to trade this guy. I mean, I don't know we've seen this Chris Letang for a few years. He's been hurt. He's been all kinds of injuries. He hasn't played well at times in stretches. this has been probably his best season in
Since
at least
2016.
3 or 4 or what? I mean, it's at least. So, yeah, he absolutely should be a finalist. And frankly, this is the Chris Letang that we all know he could be and wanted him to be the last 3 or 4 years.
We haven't seen him do this for a full season, I don't think. In the 2016 playoffs, he was incredible.
Right.
He's unbelievable, elite level at that time, but he's been doing it all season. It's been really impressive.
He's on pace for 21 goals. Since his rookie year, that has only happened 12 times by a defenseman. That's how good he is right now.
And what's his career high? Because he's got to be either close to it or
16,
right?
All right, so he's got 15, and he'll eclipse that for sure. That's unbelievable work there by Chris Letang. All right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we'll continue. We got more on the table right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Don't go away.